11 days after saying I do. Diane Calloway was found fighting for her life in the middle of the ocean. Her husband said it was an accident. But Diane had been secretly keeping records. She almost didn't go. 3 days before the cruise departed out of Miami of Florida, she sat in her sister's kitchen in Savannah, Georgia, and said 7 words that her sister would remember for the rest of her life. Something about this doesn't feel right. Her sister told her she was nervous. Just wedding jitters. Just the kind of thing every bride feels when the champagne wears off and reality sets in. So she packed her bags. She kissed her mother goodbye. She boarded that ship on a Tuesday morning in early February, bright sun, calm water, and new gold band on her left hand. She was 31 years old. Her name was Diane Calloway. And 11 days later, her new husband would be sitting in a federal interrogation room in Miami, telling investigators a story so elaborate, so carefully constructed, that the agents in that room would later say they had never heard anything quite like it in 20 combined years of service. What he did not know, what he could not have anticipated, was that Diane had spent the last 4 months of their engagement doing something he never expected from a woman he had decided was too trusting to be dangerous. She had been keeping records.
She called me from the ship on day 3. She sounded, I don't know, not scared exactly, more like she was paying attention to something. She said, "I'm writing everything down." I didn't know what that meant then. I do now.
This is the story of what happens when a man mistakes a woman's warmth for weakness. And what happens when that woman decides, quietly, methodically, and without a single dramatic gesture, that she is going to make sure the truth survives. Even if she doesn't. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Diane Calloway grew up in Savannah, Georgia, the kind of city that looks like a postcard but feels like a secret. Spanish moss. Cobblestone squares. Summers so thick with heat you could almost lean on them. She was the second of 3 daughters raised by a woman named Gloria who worked the front desk at a Savannah law firm for 27 years and never once called in sick. Gloria Calloway was the kind of mother who ironed her daughters' school uniforms the night before, kept a household budget in a spiral notebook, and told her girls, every single Sunday over dinner, that a woman who knows her own worth is a woman nobody can steal from. Diane listened. By the time she was 31, Diane had built a quiet, intentional life. She worked as a paralegal at a mid-size firm in downtown Savannah, 11 years at the same desk, the same firm, the same unwavering standard of precision that made the attorneys she worked for treat her less like support staff and more like a colleague they could not afford to lose. She owned a small house on the west side of town. Nothing glamorous, 2 bedrooms, a covered porch, a garden she tended on weekends with the same careful attention she gave everything else. She had a savings account, a retirement fund she had been contributing to since she was 24, and a filing system so organized that her youngest sister once joked she could find anything in Diane's house faster than she could find anything in her own mind. She was not the kind of woman who made noise. She was the kind of woman who made notes.
Diane was the one we all called when something went wrong. Not because she would fix it for you, she wouldn't do that, but because she would sit down with you, help you think through it clearly, and make sure you didn't miss anything. That was just who she was.
She had dated seriously twice before. The first relationship ended mutually after 3 years, no bitterness, no drama, just 2 people who had grown in different directions. They still exchanged Christmas cards. The second ended when she discovered her boyfriend had been less than honest about his financial situation, not catastrophically dishonest, but enough. Diane had a very low tolerance for men who performed stability rather than built it. She was not looking for someone when she met Nathan Cole. Which, as it turns out, is exactly when people like Nathan Cole do their best work. If you are new here, welcome to the Whispered Tales. This channel exists for one reason: to tell the stories that quiet women lived through, survived, and won. Stories that do not always make the news, but deserve to be heard. If that speaks to you, hit subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Because we release new stories every single week. And you do not want to miss what is coming. Nathan Cole was the kind of man who entered a room like he had been there before. Confident without being loud. Polished without being stiff. The kind of man who made eye contact just long enough to make you feel seen, but not long enough to make you feel studied. He was 43. Tall. Salt and pepper hair he wore slightly longer than corporate, a deliberate choice that said successful but not rigid. He told Diane he was a maritime consultant, a specialist in cargo logistics for international shipping companies. He traveled frequently. He had clients in Miami, in Houston, in Seattle. He had an apartment in Charleston and another in Atlanta. He drove a car that implied money without announcing it. He knew exactly which wine to order without looking at the list. He met Diane at a fundraising dinner for a Savannah legal aid organization, the kind of event she attended every year because her firm sponsored it, the kind of event he attended because he had learned that women worth targeting attended events like this. He asked her questions. That was the first thing she noticed. He asked questions and then actually listened to the answers. He remembered details from earlier in the conversation and wove them back in later. He made her feel like the most interesting person in the room. Which, for the record, she was. But that is not why he was doing it.
Cool. So you've been at the same firm 11 years.
That's rare. Most people move around constantly now.
Constantly now. Leo. So you've been at the same firm 11 years. That's rare. Most people move around constantly now.
I like knowing the work well. There's something anyone can jump from deal to deal. I want to understand the full picture.
What does that look like for you, the full picture? Knowing where everything is, every document, every record, every trail. You can't protect something if you don't know exactly where it is.
She would think about that line later. Much later. Over the next 6 months, Nathan Cole was precisely everything he needed to be. Attentive but not suffocating. Generous but not ostentatious. He brought her coffee exactly the way she took it without asking twice. He remembered her mother's name and asked after her specifically. He never once made her feel like she was being managed, which was, of course, the most sophisticated form of management. He proposed in March. They were standing on the porch of her house in Savannah. No restaurant, no public display. Just the two of them and a ring that looked, on first inspection, exactly like what it claimed to be. Diane said yes. And then she did something Nathan had not anticipated. She took the ring to be appraised the following Monday. Not because she was suspicious. Because her mother had raised her to be thorough. The appraisal would come back 6 days later. The stone was not a diamond.
When she called me about the ring, I went very still, because I didn't think she should tell him she knew. Not yet, I said. Diane, keep that information. Put it somewhere safe. Just keep it. She understood immediately what I meant.
That phone call between Diane and her mother would later become one of the most significant details in the entire federal investigation. Because Diane did exactly what her mother told her. She kept the appraisal report. She noted the date. She put it in a folder. And she kept going. They married in late April. Not Vegas's Diane was not a Vegas woman. They married at a small venue outside Savannah, 60 guests, her mother in the front row in a dove gray dress, her two sisters beside her. Nathan's side of the aisle had 14 people. Diane noticed that. She filed it away. He had explained it easily. He was originally from Ohio, family scattered, most of his closest people unable to travel on short notice. His best man was a colleague from Charleston named Derek, who Diane had met exactly twice. Derek gave a toast that was technically warm but oddly generic, as if he had been briefed on the relationship rather than having witnessed it. Diane noticed that too.
His best man called me Donna in the toast.
What?
He corrected himself, but he said Donna first.
Nathan's known you for 6 months.
8 months. I know, I'm fine.
She was fine. She was also, from that day forward, paying very close attention. What Diane did not know on her wedding day, what she was only beginning to piece together from small inconsistencies, from the appraisal report in her folder, from Derek's misremembered name, was that Nathan Cole had a history that bore almost no resemblance to the biography he had presented. His maritime consulting business existed, barely. A registered LLC in South Carolina with no active contracts and a website that had not been updated in 3 years. His Charleston apartment was real. His Atlanta apartment was not. It belonged to a woman named Patricia who had dated Nathan for 2 years before Diane and had not, as far as investigators would later determine, known the relationship had ended. He had filed for bankruptcy in 2019, quietly, in a different county, under a slightly different professional name. And he had taken out a life insurance policy on Diane Calloway Cole 4 weeks before their wedding. $500,000. Beneficiary, Nathan Cole. Diane did not know about the policy. But she knew enough to keep her folder. And before they boarded that cruise ship in Miami, she had added 7 more documents to it. The ship was called the Atlantic Meridian, a mid-size vessel running a 10-day Caribbean itinerary out of Miami, Nassau, St. Thomas, San Juan. Then back. They boarded on a Tuesday. By Wednesday evening, something had shifted. Not dramatically. Not in a way that would have been visible to the other passengers who smiled at them in the dining room and assumed they were honeymooners. But Diane felt it. Nathan was different on the ship. He was watchful in a way he had not been on land. He tracked who she spoke to at the bar, who sat near them at dinner. He made small redirecting comments when she began conversations with other passengers, not rude, never rude, but consistent. He wanted to know, at almost all times, exactly where she was.
There you are. I was looking everywhere. I'm sorry to steal her. We have a dinner reservation.
We have a standing reservation at 7:30. It's 5 o'clock, Nathan.
I know, but I thought we could get drinks first. Just us.
The older couple smiled at what they assumed was a devoted husband who simply missed his wife. Diane smiled too. And went with him. And that evening, in their cabin, she wrote 3 more notes in the small spiral notebook she had packed in the interior pocket of her carry-on bag. The notebook Nathan did not know existed.
She texted me on day 4. Just 3 words. Still paying attention. That was our signal. We had agreed before she left. If she felt something was wrong, she would send those 3 words and I would know to save the message. I saved it immediately.
By day 6, Nathan had begun asking questions about Diane's finances. Not directly, Nathan never did anything directly. But in the way he asked about her mortgage, about her retirement account, about whether she had a will drafted since they were now married. He framed it as responsibility. As partnership. As a husband making sure their future was protected.
I've been thinking we should both have updated wills drawn up when we get back. It just makes sense now that we're married. Yeah.
I already have one.
Right, but it would need to be updated to reflect, me.
Of course. We can do that together when we get back. With my firm's attorney.
Or we could use someone neutral, not connected to your work.
Why would we need someone neutral?
No reason. I just thought it might be easier.
I don't. My firm's attorney is fine, Nathan.
That night, after Nathan fell asleep, Diane went into the ship's small business center on Deck 7. She used the complimentary computer terminal. She sent an email to her sister. She attached 3 photographs she had taken with her phone, photographs of documents she had found in Nathan's laptop bag 3 days earlier while he was at the ship's gym. Documents that included, among other things, the life insurance policy. With her name on it. It happened on night 8. 2 days before the ship was scheduled to return to Miami. They had docked at San Juan that afternoon, walked the old city, had lunch at an open-air restaurant near the water, taken photographs in front of the colorful colonial buildings of old San Juan. To anyone watching, they looked like exactly what they claimed to be. A happy couple on their honeymoon. That evening, back on board, Nathan suggested a late walk on the upper deck after dinner. The deck was quiet at that hour. Most passengers had gone in. The night air was warm, but the wind had picked up, not dramatically, but enough to feel. Diane went. She had her phone in her cardigan pocket. She had pressed record before she left the cabin. What happened on that deck would be the subject of extensive investigation, 2 separate federal inquiries, and a trial that lasted 11 days. What is documented, what is on record, is this. At approximately 10:47 p.m. ship time, Diane Calloway Cole went over the railing of the upper deck of the Atlantic Meridian. She hit the water. She survived. She survived because she was an experienced ocean swimmer who had grown up spending summers on the Georgia coast. She survived because the water temperature that night was 78 degrees, warm enough. She survived because she screamed before she went over, loud enough that a crew member on a lower deck heard it and radioed the bridge within 45 seconds. And she survived because when the rescue boat reached her 14 minutes later, she was still conscious, still treading water, and the first thing she said to the crew member who pulled her over the side was not a cry for help. It was a location. My carry-on bag. Cabin 847. Interior pocket. Spiral notebook. Please don't let my husband near it.
In 20 years at sea, I have pulled people out of the water. They are usually in shock. They usually can barely speak. This woman. She was shaking, she was cold, she had a bruise developing above her left eye, and she gave me specific instructions, clear as anything. I will never forget it.
Nathan's account of what happened was given to the ship's security officer within the hour. He said Diane had leaned too far over the railing trying to look at something in the water. He said the wind caught her. He said he tried to grab her arm, but she slipped away before he could get a firm hold. He said he was devastated.
Mr. Cole, can you walk me through the sequence of events one more time?
We were just walking. It was a beautiful night. She leaned over.
She did that sometimes. She loved the water, and then the wind just happened so fast.
Which arm did you reach for?
Her right arm.
I moved.
Her right arm.
And you were standing on her left side?
I moved quickly.
Of course.
Meanwhile, in the ship's medical bay, Diane was being treated for a bruised rib, a laceration above her left eye, and mild hypothermia. She was also, the moment she was stable, asking for her phone. She had one call to make. Her sister.
The spiral notebook that Diane had carried in the interior pocket of her carry-on bag contained 41 pages of handwritten notes. Dated entries going back 4 months before the wedding. Written in the precise, organized hand of a woman who had spent 11 years as a paralegal and understood, better than most, what admissible documentation looks like. The notebook contained the following. A record of every inconsistency she had noticed in Nathan's account of his professional life, dates that did not align, client names that did not appear in any public record, conference locations he claimed to have attended that she had quietly verified he had not. A record of the fake diamond, the appraisal date, the appraiser's name and credentials, her own account of the conversation with her mother that followed. A record of Nathan's behavior on the cruise, specific dates, specific times, specific incidents including the redirected conversations with other passengers, the questions about her finances, the suggestion about the will. A record of the 3 photographs she had taken of the insurance policy documents, with the policy number written out in full in her own hand. And on the final page, written the evening before the incident on the upper deck, a single paragraph that investigators would later describe as the most significant piece of personal documentation they had encountered in the case. If something happens to me on this ship, I want the following people contacted immediately. I want the notebook and its contents treated as a formal statement. I want the email sent on February 14th from the ship's business center retrieved from my sister's inbox. I want Nathan Cole's financial records subpoenaed going back 5 years. I want someone to look at the life insurance policy dated January 11th. I am not being dramatic. I am being a paralegal. She was being a paralegal.
In my career, I have seen victims, I have seen survivors, I have seen people who fight back, but I have rarely seen someone demonstrate that legal foresight
and personal discipline. She didn't just survive, she handed us the case.
If you are new to this channel, welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now. Every week we bring you a story like this one. You do not want to find us and then lose us. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. We will see you next week. The FBI's Financial Crimes Division opened a formal investigation within 72 hours of the incident. The ship's security footage, which Nathan had not known existed on the upper deck, was preserved and transferred. The recording on Diane's phone, 47 minutes of audio beginning in the cabin and continuing through the walk on the deck, was transferred to investigators and sent immediately to the FBI's audio forensics lab in Quantico. The notebook was photographed, page by page, and certified as evidence. And Diane's sister forwarded the email from the ship's business center, received at 11:23 p.m. on February 14th, 3 days into the cruise, to the lead investigator within 4 hours of being contacted. Nathan was detained in Miami when the ship docked. He was cooperative in the way that men who believe they are smarter than the room around them are always initially cooperative. He told his story again, the wind, the railing, the desperate reach for her arm. He expressed relief that Diane had survived. He asked when he could see her.
Mr. Cole, we've had a chance some documentation dated January 11th of this. $500,000.
Diane is
The policy names you as beneficiary, Mr. Cole, not her. Yes, I took that out before the wedding. Standard thing when you're getting married, she would have been in the event of my life.
Yeah.
I was no corresponding policy, Mr. Gwinnett.
We also have some questions about your LLC in South Carolina and your bankruptcy filing in Greenville County in 2019. There is no corresponding policy on your life, Mr. Cole.
I was planning to take one out when we got back.
Over the next 6 hours, Nathan Cole's carefully constructed biography came apart in precisely the way Diane had documented it. The maritime consulting business, no active contracts, no current clients, no revenue in 14 months. The Atlanta apartment, confirmed to belong to a woman who had filed a police report 18 months earlier about financial fraud perpetrated by a man matching Nathan's description. The bankruptcy, confirmed, under a business name variation that investigators connected to Nathan through his social security number within 40 minutes. And the audio recording from Diane's phone. The recording was 47 minutes long. The first 31 minutes were ambient, footsteps, wind, occasional conversation too distant to parse. At the 31-minute mark, Nathan's voice became clearly audible. The FBI's audio forensics lab enhanced and transcribed the final 16 minutes of that recording. The transcript was submitted as evidence. Investigators would later say it was the single most consequential piece of audio they had processed in 4 years. The contents of that transcript have never been fully released publicly. What has been confirmed, by the prosecution, on the record, is that it contained Nathan Cole making statements that were, in the lead prosecutor's words, entirely inconsistent with the account of an innocent man. Nathan's attorney moved to suppress it. The motion was denied. Nathan Cole was charged on 3 counts. Attempted murder, for the incident on the upper deck of the Atlantic Meridian. Insurance fraud, for the $500,000 policy taken out without Diane's knowledge or consent, with the stated intent of collecting on her death. Wire fraud, for the financial deceptions perpetrated during the course of their relationship, including the fabricated business, the concealed bankruptcy, and the misrepresentation of assets that formed the basis of their marriage contract. The trial lasted 11 days. Diane testified for 6 hours across 2 days. She was not nervous. She sat in that witness box with the same quiet precision she brought to everything, answering each question fully, accurately, and without embellishment. When Nathan's attorney attempted to suggest that the notebook was fabricated after the incident, Diane's response was simple.
The notebook was photographed by ship security officers before I had regained feeling in my left hand.
The timestamps on the photographs are part of the evidence record. The email sent from the ship's business center on February 14th was received by my sister
At 11:23 p.m. ship time, 4 days before the incident.
The appraisal report is dated October 3rd and was logged into my firm's document system that same day because I used our scanner. Everything in that notebook is time-stamped, cross-referenced, or independently verified. I am a paralegal. That is how I take notes.
The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 20 minutes. They returned guilty verdicts on all 3 counts. Nathan Cole was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. He will not be eligible for parole for 16.
I raised my daughters to know their own worth. Diane knew hers. She knew it before she got on that ship. She knew it when she got in that water.
And she knew it when she sat in that courtroom. I am not surprised by what she did. I am only grateful she is here to tell it.
Diane Calloway, she dropped Cole from her name the week the verdict came in, went back to work at her firm in Savannah 8 weeks after returning from Miami. Her colleagues had kept her desk exactly as she left it. Her files were in order. Her coffee mug was clean and waiting. She sat down, turned on her computer, and got to work. Here is what she lost. 8 months of her life she had given to a man who was performing a character rather than living a life. A wedding she had genuinely looked forward to, the flowers, the dress, her mother in the front row, that now existed in photographs she could not yet look at. A version of the future she had allowed herself to imagine. And a gold ring that turned out not to be what it claimed, which, in retrospect, was the most honest thing about Nathan Cole. He showed her exactly who he was from the beginning. She had noted it. She had filed it. And she had been ready. Here is what she kept. Her house. Her savings. Her retirement account. Her mother. Her sisters. Her cat, a tabby named Gavel, who had been staying with her youngest sister during the honeymoon and who, upon Diane's return, climbed directly onto her lap and refused to move for approximately 4 hours. And the spiral notebook, which she kept in her filing cabinet. 3rd drawer. Under N.
I asked her why she kept it. She said, because it's mine. I wrote every word of it, and nobody gets to take the things I made. That's Diane. That has always been Diane.
People ask what the lesson is. They want a warning. A list of red flags. A checklist for spotting the Nathan Coles of the world before they get close enough to do damage. And there are red flags. There are always red flags. The ring that is not what it claims to be. The best man who does not know your name. The questions about the will that come too early. The hand that redirects you away from other people just often enough that you begin to notice the pattern. But the lesson Diane's story actually teaches is something quieter than a checklist. It is this. Trust what you notice. Not the fear. Not the worst-case scenario your mind constructs at 2 in the morning. But the small, specific, concrete things that do not add up, the ones your brain keeps returning to because it is trying to tell you something your heart is not yet ready to hear. Trust those. Write them down. Date them. Keep the folder. Diane noticed the ring. She had it appraised. She noticed the best man's mistake. She wrote it down. She noticed the shift in Nathan's behavior on the ship. She pressed record. She did not panic. She did not confront. She did not flee. She documented. Because she had been raised by a woman who kept a household budget in a spiral notebook and told her daughters every Sunday at dinner that a woman who knows her own worth is a woman nobody can steal from. Gloria Calloway was right. I want to pause here for just a moment. If this is your first time watching the Whispered Tales, I am glad you found us. This channel is for anyone who has ever been overlooked. Anyone who has ever been underestimated. Anyone who has ever sat quietly in a room full of people who did not see them clearly. And decided, without announcement, without drama, that they were going to be just fine anyway. Subscribe if that is you. We have a lot more stories to tell. He chose her because he thought she was too warm to be watching. He forgot. She had been watching since the very first night. She just never told him what she saw.